Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy the Mad Tiger, and up here today with a game review. I not long finished. The game review is Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now I know a little bit late to the party here, but I don't play games on the day that they come out. I personally just play a game when I get round to playing it. Because this was on the new PlayStation Plus, I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. I know it's not going to be an overly long game, and I'm kind of glad that I did. I've got some things that I enjoyed about it, and then there's some things that I think perhaps it was lacking in some areas. So first of all, I just want to start by saying that a lot of people thought when this was announced that this was going to be a full-fledged, open game, as big as Spider-Man and Marvel Spider-Man. And I just want to start by saying that the name for the new Spider-Man game is just awful. You got when people say, "Oh, you played Spider-Man," it's like, which one? Spider-Man's been around for years, but you had the original 2 Spider-Man games on PS1, then you had the 3 Spider-Man games based on the Tobey Maguire movies, and then you had the Amazing Spider-Man. Now you've got Marvel Spider-Man, so we'll just call it the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man. And obviously, Spider-Man Miles Morales, a lot of people are sort of thrown off by this one, thinking it was a full-fledged sequel, when in reality it's not. It's like a standalone DLC, basically. It's like Spider-Man 1.5. It's basically setting up Miles' his character. It's his not origin story, but it's his story before, Spider-Man 2 comes out. Which obviously, as we know, is probably going to include both, Peter Parker and Miles Morales as playable characters. It'd be cool if they had a co-op mode, right? So obviously, this game obviously takes place, I'm not too sure how long after the events of the first game, but obviously, you do really need to play the first game to sort of get a gist of what really happened. It doesn't really necessarily mean you have to, but there is some background, and the game does start with a recap of the previous game. So essentially, you're basically playing Miles' story, and it's his story. It's sort of condensed. The game takes place in Harlem, in Harlem rather than Manhattan, and it still feels pretty big. It feels. Looked great. I played it on the PlayStation 4 because I don't have a PS5. And honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. Is it a game that you need to buy a PlayStation 5 for? No. The only difference between the PS5 and the PS4 version is obviously the PS5 version was like a showcase game, basically showcasing just how quickly the load times are, or boosting no load times, whereas the PS4 version obviously doesn't have that. But honestly, it's not overly dramatic. The load times aren't too long, and it doesn't feel. There was a couple of times I run into a few little glitches here and there, and there was a couple of times where the game would sort of stop and it would have to load in the area, but it didn't like stop the game and pause and open another area. No, it just sort of loaded it as it was going. That was the only thing I sort of run into, gameplay wise in terms of the differences. But obviously the PS5 version obviously boosted how quickly the game loaded and stuff like that. But don't feel like, because, I've got the PS4, everyone's on about the PS5 version. Honestly, it's not a massive step up. It's only a few little improvements. And because it's on PlayStation Plus, if you have PlayStation Plus Essential, Premium or PlayStation Plus Extra, you can check it out. Like I said, a lot of people thought this was going to be a full-fledged sequel. It's not. It's a condensed version of the first game, essentially. So, gameplay-wise, it's pretty much the same as the first game, except there are a few changes. The first change, obviously, in the first game, each suit basically unlocked like special abilities, whereas in this one you don't have any a bunch of different special abilities. Your main special ability is the bioelectric venom attack, not Venom the character, but Venom, like electro attacks basically. And that's your main special ability in this one, which obviously you can use in combat, but you can also use in, there's a few elements in the game where there's some light puzzling elements where you have to sort of use your web to create bioelectric, like little areas and charge things up and stuff like that. The gameplay is pretty much the same as the first one, and there's also there are a few improvements. Combat still feels smooth. You obviously Miles Morales has a bunch of different abilities that he can use in combat. Another new feature is the fact that he can like camouflage himself and go invisible, which makes stealth gameplay a lot easier for some people. Especially if you're in combat, you can go invisible. If you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, you don't just have to retreat. You can just go invisible and then, go and hide and basically go back to stealth mode. So you can switch from stealth to, combat quite easily. Obviously, you get that later on in the game, but that's a nice little change for me. So basically, the story is basically Miles. For me, I'm going to be honest with you, the story for me was decent, but I'm going to be honest with you, it was lacking in a few areas. There was no actual proper boss fights like there was in the first game. There is a few, but there's only like 3 main villains in this one. Obviously, Rhino from the first game. The new villain is Tinkerer, so it's obviously his and her Miles story. I won't give away the story, but... and then, obviously, there's a fight with the Prowler, who's also a new character to the game. I've never heard of those two characters, Tinkerer and Prowler. I don't follow a lot of the Miles Morales Spider-Man, so that was, to me, where it was lacking a little bit. It didn't have... The first game had a bunch of villains. Obviously, the whole point was building up the Sinister Six. But this one doesn't have a lot of that. There's literally 2 main villains that you come across. And then obviously the Prowler is just one fight. He's an anti-hero type character. So yeah. It still has what the first game has, has its story, it has its upgrading, the leveling up system, unlocking new skills, unlocking new suits. The suits are pretty cool, I will say. There's not as many as the first game, but, there's probably about 20 or so. You can obviously upgrade gadgets. You only have 4 different gadgets. You have your web shooters, your gravity well, your hologram type characters, and then obviously your little remote electro mines. Obviously you can, the game had it had in the first game, obviously the collectibles, the bases, challenges, those sort of things, side missions, crime. So pretty much what the first game had, just a little bit more condensed. I'm going to be honest with you, I enjoyed it. It's about a 10 to 15 hour long game, depending on how you look at things. I feel like it's about 10 hours less than the first game, probably maybe a little bit more than that. So if you enjoyed the first game and you kind of want more bang for your buck, basically, it's not a bad game to play to tide you over, because obviously we know we'll be getting Spider-Man 2 next year, hopefully. So honestly, I thought it was a fun game, more bang for your buck. Like I said, gameplay was there. It doesn't have as much as the first game, but like I said, the price point that it was originally charging is, in my opinion, was a bit too high. But now it's available on PlayStation Plus. If you've never played it and you were sort of holding off on it, it's the perfect time to play it. Get yourself in the mood for Spider-Man 2. Obviously, Spider-Man at the moment is huge now. There's movies and stuff like that, So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun game. If you played the first one and you enjoyed the first one, you're going to feel right at home. Like I said, my only gripes were the villains were a little bit, they were cool designs, and the enemies were cool designs and stuff like that. The underground were like neon. It sort of reminded me a little bit of the infamous first Neon characters, if you will. And in a way, it's kind of like that. Like you had the infamous First Light DLC where it was a standalone game. It's kind of like that a little bit. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun game. It's not a massive improvement over the first one. There are some slight changes that obviously make the first one, improvement. So obviously going forward, I hope that they take what they did from this one and sort of implement it into the second game. Like I said, the villains weren't overly great. I would have liked more villains or some sort of side villains in the side missions, like in the first game. There's villains that don't appear in the main campaign but do appear in side missions. There's no DLC, unfortunately, for the game. I think the game would have been perfect to have two different DLCs, one where you can play as the Tinkerer and one where you can play as the Prowler, because they pretty much play the same as Spider-Man with the running around, jumping off things. I think the Prowler would have been perfect for a small DLC, because he had the camouflage techniques and he got the grappling hook and all of that. So I don't know. They could have done more with it. The game does have a new game plus mode, and the difficulties are pretty, good. There's a bit, you have the friendly neighborhood mode, which basically means you can't get knocked out at all, you can't die, which is great for people that, younger people that perhaps want to play the game but don't want to get frustrated. But then you have the harder difficulties, and stuff like that. Is it my favourite superhero game? No. But it's definitely up there as one that I enjoyed. More bang for your buck. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun game. I enjoyed the characters. I think Spider-Man Miles Morales is pretty awesome, and it's sort of more his story, and that's what I gathered from it. It was his story. And I think it set up the next game nicely. The post-end credit obviously sets up for the next one, so you have to play it to sort of get that little bit of glimpse as to what we know. I'm going to be honest, who's going to be the main villain in the next game? It's going to be Green Goblin. I don't know. Could be Venom. But either way, I enjoyed it. So for me, I think it gets an 8 out of 10. It's definitely much like the first game. It's not as good as the first one. It's got a little bit less, but for what it is what it is. But anyway, if you enjoyed this review, feel free to leave a like and comment below. Let me know if you played Spider-Man Miles Morales. Who's your favourite Spider-Man and what's your favourite Spider-Man costume? I personally really like the black and white Spider-Man costume. I think that's a really cool costume. But I do like the Iron Spider costume from Marvel Infinity War. I really like that costume. And as always, guys, subscribe if you haven't already and join the family. Tonight I'm going to play some more Vikings Wolves of Midgard, although part of me is like, do I really want to continue playing it because it's quite grindy, and I'm going to do a review on it. I watched the movie Brimstone last night and I've got to say, wow, I was not expecting it to go like that, but I will be doing a review of that movie coming soon. I'm going to watch Doctor Strange tonight, continue with the MCU. Doctor Strange, I've already seen Doctor Strange, I haven't seen the new one yet. Part of me was like, do I skip this one and just move on to the next one? But I've already started watching them in order, so and as always, guys, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye.